Welcome back to Dimebag Darren and the Omnivox channel. I'm reading my favorite book, Isaac Asimov's Foundation, and you join us on Chapter 3. Up until now, the main person in our story, Gal Dornick, left his home planet, moved to a new planet called Trantor for the opportunity of a job with a top-notch professor of mathematics by the name of Harry Seldon. He has landed on the planet Trantor, where Harry Seldon works at the university, and he's looking forward to meeting with Harry soon and getting things started on his brand new career. I think there's something a little more in store for Gal than just that. Welcome back to Isaac Asimov's Foundation in Chapter 3. Trantor. At the beginning of the 13th millennium, this tendency reached its climax. At the center of the imperial government for unbroken hundreds of generations, and located as it was in the central regions of the galaxy among the most densely populated and industrially advanced worlds of the system, it could scarcely help being the densest and richest clot of humanity the race had ever seen. Its urbanization, progressing steadily, had finally reached the ultimate. All of the land surface of Trantor, 75 million square miles in extent, was a single city. The population at its height was well in excess of 40 billion. This enormous population was devoted almost entirely to the administrative necessities of empire, and found themselves all too few for the complications of the task. It is to be remembered that the impossibility of proper administration of the galactic empire under the uninspired leadership of the later empires was a considerable factor in the fall. Daily, fleets of ships in the tens of thousands brought the produce of 20 agricultural worlds to the dinner tables of Trantor. Its dependence upon the outer world for food, and indeed for all the necessities of life, made Trantor increasingly vulnerable to conquest by siege. In the last millennium of the empire, the monotonously numerous revolts made emperor after emperor conscious of this, and imperial policy became little more than the protection of Trantor's delicate jugular vein. Encyclopedia Galactica. Gal was not certain whether the sun shone, or, for that matter, whether it was day or night. He was ashamed to ask. All the planet seemed to live beneath metal, the meal of which he had just partaken had been labeled luncheon, but there were many planets on which lived the standard time scale that took no account of the perhaps inconvenient alternation of day and night. The rate of planetary turnings differed, and he did not know that of Trantor. At first, he eagerly followed the signs to the sunroom and found it was a chamber for basking in artificial radiation. He lingered a moment or two and then returned to the Luxor's main lobby. He asked the room clerk, "Where can I buy a ticket for a planetary tour?" "Right here." "When will it start?" "You just missed it. Another one tomorrow. Buy a ticket now and we'll reserve a place for you." "Oh, tomorrow will be too late." He would have to be at the university tomorrow. He said, "There wouldn't be an observation tower or something in the open air?" "Sure, sell you a ticket for that if you want. Better let me check if it's raining or not. He closed the contact at his elbow and read the following letters that raced across a frosted screen. Gal read with him. The room clerk said, "Good weather. Come to think of it, I do believe it's the dry season now." He added conversationally, "I don't bother with the outside myself. The last time I was in the open was 3 years ago. You see it once, and that's all there is to it. Here's your ticket. Special elevator in the rear. It's marked to the tower. Just take it." The elevator was of the new sort that was run by gravitic repulsion. Gal entered and a few followed in behind him. The operator closed the contact, and for a moment Gal felt suspended in space as gravity switched to zero, and then he had weight again in small measure as the elevator accelerated upwards. Deceleration followed, and his feet left the floor. He squawked again against his will. The operator called out, "Tuck your feet under the railing. Can't you read the sign?" The others had done so. They were all smiling at him as he madly and vainly tried to clamber back down the wall. Their shoes were pressed upwards against the chromium of the railings that stretched across the bottom of the floor in parallels set 2 feet apart. He had noticed those railings on entering, but had ignored them. Then a hand reached out and pulled him back down. He gasped his thanks as the elevator came to a halt. He stepped out upon an open terrace, bathed in a white brilliance that hurt his eyes. The man who had been his helping hand, had just now been the recipient of, was immediately behind him. The man said, kindly, "Plenty of seats." Gale closed his mouth, had been gaping, and said, "It certainly seems so." He started for them automatically and then stopped. He said, "If you don't mind, I'll just stop a moment at the railing. I want to look a bit." The man waved him on good-naturedly, and Gull leaned over the shoulder-high railing and bathed himself in all the panorama. He could not see the ground. It was lost in the ever-increasing complexities of man-made structures. He could see no horizon other than that of metal against sky, stretching out to almost uniform grayness, and he knew it was so all over the land surface of the planet. There was scarcely any motion to be seen. A few pleasure craft lazed against the sky, but all the busy traffic of billions of men were going on, and he knew, beneath the metal skin of the world. There was no green to be seen. No green, no soil, no life other than man. Somewhere on the world, he realized vaguely, was the Emperor's palace, set amid 100 square miles of natural soil, green with trees, rainbowed with flowers. It was a small island amidst an ocean of steel, but it wasn't visible from where he stood. It might be 10,000 miles away. He didn't even know. Before very long, he must have a tour. He sighed heavily and realized that finally he was on Trantor, at last on the planet that was at the center of all the galaxy, and the kernel of the human race. He saw none of its weaknesses. He saw no ships of food landing. He was not aware of a jugular vein delicately connecting the 40 billion of Trantor with the rest of the galaxy. He was conscious only of the mightiest deed of man, the complete and almost contemptuously final conquest of a world. He came away a little blank-eyed. His friend of the elevator was indicating a seat next to himself, and Gal took it. The man smiled. "My name is Jarrell. First time on Trantor?" "Yes, Mr. Jarrell." "Thought so." Jarill's my first name. Trantor gets you if you got the poetic temperament. Trantorians never come up here, though. They don't like it. Gives them nerves. Nerves? My name's Gal, by the way. Why would it give them nerves? It's glorious. A subjective matter of opinion, Gal. If you're born in a crucible and grow up in a corridor and work in a cell and vacation in a crowded sunroom and then come out to the open with nothing but sky over you, you might have a nervous breakdown. They make children come up here once a year after they're 5. I don't know if it does any good. They don't get enough of it, really, and the first few times they scream themselves into hysteria. They ought to start as soon as they're weaned and have the trip once a week. He went on. Of course, that doesn't really matter. What if they never come out at all? They're happy down there, and they run the empire. How high up do you think we are? He said 1/2 mile, and wondered if that sounded naive. It must have, for Gerald chuckled a little. He said, no, just 500 feet. What? But the elevator took about... I know. But most of the time it was just getting us up to ground level. Trantor is tunneled over a mile down. It's like an iceberg. 9/10 is out of sight. It even works itself out a few miles into what was once sub-ocean soil at the shorelines. In fact, we're so low that we can now make use of the temperature differences between ground level and a couple miles under to supply us with all the energy we need. Did you know that? No, I thought you used atomic generators. We did once, but this is cheaper. I imagine so. What do you think of it all? For a moment, the man's good nature evaporated into shrewdness. He almost looked sly. Gale fumbled. Glorious? He said again. You're on vacation? Traveling? Sightseeing? Not exactly. At least. I've always wanted to visit Trantor, but I came here primarily for a job. Oh. Gale felt obliged to explain further. With Dr. Selden's project at the University of Trantor. Raven Selden? Why, no. The one I mean is Harry Selden, the psychohistorian Selden. I don't know of any Raven Selden. Harry's the one I mean. They call him Raven. Slang, you know. He keeps predicting disaster. He does. Gal was genuinely astonished. Surely you must know. Gerald was not smiling. You're coming to work for him, aren't you? Well, yes, I'm a mathematician. Why does he predict disaster? What kind of disaster? What kind would you think? I'm afraid I wouldn't have the least idea. I've read the papers Dr. Selden and his group have published. They're on mathematical theory. Yes, the ones he publishes. Gal felt annoyed. He said, I think I'll go to my room now. Very pleased to have met you. Gerald waved his arm indifferently in farewell. Gal found a man waiting for him in his room. For a moment, he was too startled to put the words into the inevitable, "What are you doing here?" That came to his lips. The man rose. He was old and almost bald, and he walked with a limp, but his eyes were very bright and blue. He said, I am Harry Selden. An instant before Gal's befuddled brain placed the face alongside the memory for the many times he had seen him in a picture. And thus ends Chapter 3 of Isaac Asimov's book, Foundation. Thank you for listening to this reading by Dimebag. Come back again for chapter number 4 at an upcoming time. I appreciate you very much. I hope you enjoy this and have a great day. Dimebag out.